Good afternoon, everybody. Um, welcome to International Digital Diplomacy Conference. So today's event, I'll be moderating the panel 2, which is we are discussing about the digital transformation at the SMEs. So we have 4 interesting panelists today with me that will discuss with these SMEs. So this is actually very interesting forum that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Indonesia have been running. Actually, I was also speaker and moderating in 2019, the regional event. Now, after 2 years after that, so we have now having this international event. Very interesting on this era, we'll do it on the hybrid model. So we're going to actually all our attendees here is already having a COVID testing. So, and we're going to already deploy the health protocol for this event. Yeah. So we have 4 interesting panelists today. As we know, the digital transformation happened quite significantly because of the COVID. So as the main topic of this event is unmasking the new normal of digital diplomacy. So without further ado, actually, I would like to each of the panelists to introduce themselves, yeah, one by one. And also, you can start presenting the event. So there'll be 4 panelists, which is Ms. Siti Aziza, the Deputy Minister of Entrepreneurship, Ministry of Cooperative and Small Medium Enterprise of Republic of Indonesia. And then Mr. Rahmat Kaimuddin, the Chief Executive Officer of Bukalapak. The third one is Ms. Monica Likama, the CEO of Enfuse Finland. And the last one is Mr. Ibrahim Patel, the Managing Director of Sia Sosa Technologies. So good morning for some in Europe, which is Ms. Monica. Good afternoon for Ms. Siti, Mr. Rahmat, and Mr. Abraham. You are in Durban, is it? You are still on mute.
It's good morning in South Africa as well.
Oh, okay. Good morning in South Africa. Very interesting. So I think in the beginning, I would like to Ms. Siti to introduce yourself, and you can also start presenting your deck. There will be 7 minutes of presentation session, introduction session. The floor is yours, Ms. Siti.
Okay. So good afternoon, everybody. Good morning for some of you. So Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So my name is Aziza. Actually, you can call me just Aziza. So I'm the Deputy of Entrepreneurship in the Ministry of Cooperation and Small and Medium Enterprises of Republic Indonesia. So let me introduce myself. Actually, I'm new to the ministry. Prior to this job, I used to be the bankers, insurers for some companies, as well as entrepreneur. So prior to joining the Ministry of Cooperative and SMEs, so I also knew how to, how to develop the business, how to, that's my little conversation about myself or introduction about myself. So are we going to directly to the slides?
Yeah, please. Yes. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Aziza. Yeah.
Sure. So if we are discussing about digital, it's one of our focus in the Deputy of Entrepreneurship. So actually, we are currently doing a lot of programs, activities to develop the digitalization. So in fact, we just had a very good, event with Pak Rahmat, Thai Pak Rahmat from Bukalapak. So we call it the Roadshow Clinic. So why we call it like that? Because, we still have a lot of the SMEs do not have any access or very lack or very low in terms of digital iteration. So that's why we will collaborate with Bukalapak on this case and others players in the banks and non-banks to again giving a lot of information, coaching, training to all people throughout Indonesia. So we are saying that we are looking at this one. So for big cities, we don't have any problem on the literacy, but on small ones, we still we're still facing a lot of these SMEs having a very small understanding on digital. Okay, so let me start with the presentation. Next slide, please. So this is the roadmap of digitalization from MSME and cooperative. So if you look at the number of digital onboarding, today we are having about 14.6 million, where we targeted on 30 million in 2024. So we still, not more than half, but we are in 3 years, we are quite, confident that we can achieve the number with all help from all the players, all the stakeholders. So if we are looking at the digital corporate, there's about 100 cooperatives today, and we are looking at the 500 cooperatives in 2024. And if we see the export contribution of the MSME, so today is about 15.2%, and the target will be 17.6 in 2024. So this is, we have a problem with this screen.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so we are back. So this is basically how we are gonna see on the 2024 in terms of digital onboarding, digital cooperative, as well as the contribution of the export. Next slide, please. So next slide. Okay, so this is showing you the condition of current MSMEs. Today we have about 64% player. Okay, the pelaku UMKM today is about 64 million. But in terms of the companies, actually dominated by micro. So about 98.7% microeconomy, and to dominate the MSMEs. And if we are talking about microeconomy, the majority of them is a part of economic subsistence, and a majority work in informal sector, which is changing in constantly. So today they can, sell, we call it in Indonesia bakso, but tomorrow they can sell sate. So they can, changing very fast. And because of sometimes they are most of the time they are looking at the next door shops, so they just follow what is the best sales, and they have very low and business literation, and then very limited access to bank, digital, and other access. While for SMEs, the small enterprises, majority on the end product. So they have to compete with the big enterprises, large enterprises, and each of them creating their own brand, which we know the cost of branding itself is quite high, and only a few enterprises generating the value creation. Okay, so if we look at the number of population, UMKM or MSME is actually 99% of population. So 99% of the business population is MSME, and 97% kerja or employment, and then 14% contribution to export, and then 22% on board or connected to digital, and then 60% contribution to the GDP, and 58% of national investment. So if we look at the comparison with other countries, so we are still lower in terms of export. If you look at the Singapore, Malaysia, Japan, Korea, while on the entrepreneurship portion, we are also lower than other countries. We are at 3.47%, while Malaysia and Thailand already above 4.5. So, and Singapore, our next country, is about 8.76. So again, this is the condition of Indonesian current MSMEs. Next slide, please.
Ms. Aziza, since you only have 7 minutes, maybe you can accelerate a little bit of the presentation.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you. Okay, so the model actually, starting from the condition, approach, and target assistance, and 2024 target. What I want to highlight here is we do several approaches about digitalization. So whether reach the customer, whether or digital to get the supplier, or the end-to-end. Of course, we are looking at the end-to-end. And for this, digitalization project or program, we are working with university, association, and the delivery platform and online shop. So as I mentioned before, that we just had the collaboration with Bukalapak as one of the e-commerce Indonesia. So the target is 30 million on the digital, 500 digital co-op, and 3.95% entrepreneurship, and 17.6% on the export contribution. Next. Okay, so this slide, I think will telling you the story, the growth of onboarding. So comparing to last year, we are actually double in terms of size. So on the 2019, the onboarding number is about 8 million. Today, already 14. So I think we get accelerated by the pandemic as well. Okay, next slide. So basically, we cannot work alone. So to achieve all those targets, we need to collaborate, or we need collaboration with a lot of stakeholders, not just in the government, but also in the private sector. So e-commerce, banking, and then delivery, and then the insurtech, and everybody in the field. So actually, what we are doing right now is next slide. Okay, we just had the national coordination meeting for cooperative and MSME digital transformation. So this is actually we just had it last week. So we expect by having this national coordination meeting, we can having the roadmap of cooperative and MSMEs digitalization, and we consolidate the potential mapping and challenges, which at the end we can identify the digitalization target group, and up to the formation and development of digitalization transformation program. Okay, next slide.
Hello.
Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Hello. Next slide. Okay, so this is what I just mentioned to you, that we are currently working together with 7 platforms on digital. So Bukalapak, Tokopedia, Blibli, Tanihat, Duanyam, Aruna, and Bineka. So the idea is to have the roadshow clinic to all the, province in Indonesia and cities. So okay. So in this clinic, actually, we are having, we are planning to have the training on the market penetration, product quality, and capacity improvement, as well as literation. So we already have 2 cities with Bukalapak. So soon we're gonna have with the other platform. So the same, like we had last week. Next slide.
So probably this is your last slide, yeah, Miss Aziza. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah. So I think the last 2 slides showing, the next slide, the last slide. Next slide. Okay.
To the last slide.
The last slide is, we are showing to you the collaboration between Ministry of Co-op and SME with other stakeholders to accelerate the digitalization of cooperative and MSME. And, we will really appreciate if you all can use our new hashtag, Berubah Digital. This is in Indonesia, this one. So appreciate if everybody can go with the hashtag Berubah Digital, showing the commitment of, Ministry of Cooperative and MSME to go digital, to transform digital. I think this is my last slide. So again, thank you for the opportunity. Apologize for any mistake that, and then good luck. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you, Miss Siti Aziza, for the. So there is some internet issue, but I think this is normal in this new normal. I think happen in everybody because the internet access is not stable sometimes. Yeah. So thank you, Ms. Siti Aziza, for the presentation of your session. So next, actually, I would like Ms. Monica to introduce yourself and also presenting the deck that you already prepared. 7
Yes,
minutes.
hello. Yeah, I'm Finnish, so I'm sure I'm going to manage that one. So thank you. My name is Monika Liikama. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Enfuse Financial Services. So I also used to be a banker before I turned entrepreneur. And I started off a company 5.5 years ago, and we've grown quite a lot. And digitalization is really important for us. So what we enable is actually the issuance of money. So thank you so much for having me here. It's an honor to be presenting, and of course, really looking forward to the collaborations in the future, especially within digitalization and enabling SMEs that are the backbone of each country to really have the best of breed in their services so they can really focus on their own business. But if we can get the presentation up.
Yes.
Yeah. So what we do at Enfuse is that we talk about payments that pay off, and what that actually means is that it is easy, it is embedded, it is easy to understand, because in the end of the day, everything that we do revolves around money. So next slide, please. So what we do is the next level card issuing and payment processing services. So we enable the issuance of money. So, and I think here we have, unfortunately, some animation. So if whoever is presenting could click through that I get a full slide of texts. Just click on the, yeah, just a little bit more. A couple of times clicking more. Yeah, so just click until you get the whole slide presented, whoever it is who's presenting. But I really like the previous presentation from Ms. Aziza, because collaboration is the key. So if we look at the side of our core values, collaboration has always been something that we really strive on. And now the slide is full. Thank you so much, whoever it is. So collaboration is really the key to succeed. The collaboration is the key for excellence, because we talk about people's data and people's money. And of course, sustainability is really important. I'm going to deep dive into it a little bit more. And of course, the world is digital, which means that these kind of conferences can be held, but even more, we can service each other globally. And the way that we can actually build wealth and diversity and inclusion has become better than ever before. So next slide, please. And then just click through. Yeah, so what we do, we enable the issuance of different kinds of money, being it anything and everything from cards, consumer businesses, etc. So that's what we started doing. So I've been in banking for a long time and also in the telco world. So really enabling people to have easy access to different kind of financial instrument is really important to guide and build the businesses that really help us in the world become better. So if we go to the next slide, I have a couple of use cases on the things that we have done. So if next slide, please. Here are just examples from the Nordics and Europe that we have different kind of customers enabling different kind of things. So we really see companies building expense management solutions, installments or lending solutions, personal finance management, payments, fleet and fuel. So we can really see that embedding payments is really important, whether it be on an e-com side or whether it be between customers. I mean, like consumer and buyers. Yeah, please just jump to the next slide. It's fine. But I think one of the biggest things that I love talking about and what I really look forward having an impact on is the climate change, because the climate change is the big equalizer. And of course, it also is the big divider of nations. So just as an example, if we look at, in order for us to actually come up to the 1.5 degree lifestyle, I know that we in the Nordics have a tendency of thinking that everything, we're so good and awesome, but actually we are really a big part of the problem. So an average Finn emits around 10.4 tons of CO2 emissions per year. And it's a lot to do with what we eat, how we live, how we spend our money, what we buy, etc. And it's really important that we start changing. And if we think about the persons in Finland, in order for us to keep to the 1.5 degree lifestyle, we will need to reduce our emissions with over 70% within the next 8-9 years. And then of course, even more. So in order to keep up to the targets, we need to be on around 0.5 ton of emissions per person. And especially in the industrial countries where we have a lot of more wealth, people are really thinking that in order to emit less equals living, lowering the standard of living. But that's not true. It's about actually producing services in a more sustainable way. It's adding technology, and it's of course reducing any kind of emissions and helping us people to understand the impact. So that if we go to the next slide, which is the second last slide for me, next slide, please. What we then did is we built a tool, a digital tool called My Carbon Action, which calculates carbon footprint on all purchases made. And it also enables the understanding of the climate impact every purchase has. And it also gives a lot of personalized tips on how to become more sustainable. So if we look at Finland, for example, we are really forerunners in technology, in digitalization. We were the first country in the world back in the 90s to have a net bank. And now we really want to be a forerunner within the sustainability. But I think for us also, it's time to walk the talk and not just talk the talk. So next slide, please. thank you so much for having me here. I look forward to having discussion in this panel, and I hope I kept to my 7 minutes.
Thank you, Monica. So yeah, if any of the audience online or in the floor, you have any question, please prepare. After all the panelists, you can ask a question directly. So next, Mr. Rahmat, the CEO of Bukalapak. Bukalapak have been grown so much. I remember I met Zaki back in campus 2012 when he got funded by Ebi Harasan. It was starting like a bike marketplace, but now you guys like becoming like not only in e-commerce, you do like offline SI by bidding Mitra Bukalapak. So Mr. Ahmad, can you share the story of Bukalapak and what is happened now in Bukalapak? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mas Italo. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rahmat Kamarudin.
Indonesia Digital
I am the CEO of Bukalapak.
Beda-beda ya.
Yeah, sorry. My name is Rahmat Kamarudin. I am the CEO of Bukalapak. Basically, I joined the company in January 2020. Basically, replacing the founder that Mas Italo mentioned just now, Mas Zaki. So our company is called Bukalapak, which literally mean in Indonesian like open stall. So what we are is an all-commerce tech company that we run online marketplace and also an online to offline service for micro retailers and small and medium enterprises in Indonesia. So what we are thinking of doing at the time, Bukalapak actually started in 2010 by 3 people, fresh grads who learn about technology, and the goal is always thinking on how to empower small and medium enterprises. How can we empower them using technology? And the kind of things that we focus on is that what we want to try to give them is we want to give them access to market, because typically small and medium enterprises, when they open their business, they only can access small market, like either their neighborhood or if they open like a side stall, roadside stall, then they can only access that road and whatnot, right? They cannot access the whole Indonesia. So how can they access bigger market? The other problem that we want to solve is access to supply and or products for them to either to buy or resell. Because if let's say if you live in big city in Indonesia, in Jakarta, in Surabaya, then you have access to everything. But the moment you actually if you live in the villages or even outside of the top big cities, then it's harder for people to get the supply. One other things that we are thinking of solving is the access to modern business process. Typically, small and medium enterprises do their business traditionally, right? They write things by using pen and paper. They don't digitize the inventory. They don't have good bookkeeping and whatnot. Just because they don't have the capital to invest to build that infrastructure. And of course, given lack of, let's say, bookkeeping and whatnot, it's harder for people also to get access to financial services. If you want to borrow money, basically you're probably still, people call it unbanked or underbanked population. So people want to see your track records. You don't have track records because all your business is actually done manually. So what we are trying to do here in Bukalapak is to provide technology that is suitable to provide all that access, to open this access to people. So one of the things that we do first was like a decade ago, we started with a solution, which is online marketplace. We thought it's a good place to start because typically if you want to do commerce, you do it in the market. In the market, there's a lot of traffic, a lot of big access to market, big access to supply. The price typically will be relatively fair, but the physical market is actually quite hard to access, especially if you are living in outside city, and typically you actually have to spend some money as well or capital to get access to trade in that market. So we create an online marketplace whereby everyone, as long as they get access to internet and a gadget, they can basically upload our marketplace, install our marketplace, and start trading. They can start uploading their inventory, and immediately they get access of market from all over Indonesia, basically, with very limited cost. And we also provide infrastructure, basically like an escrow account service, if you will. So once only when the goods are accepted, that they release the money. We work a lot with banks for payments. We also work a lot with logistic companies to ensure that delivery of the physical goods can be smooth. And we also have a third party that can say that, oh, yeah, the good has been delivered properly to the buyer. And of course, this online marketplace model has been very successful. Even in Indonesia, there are multiple unicorn-sized tech companies doing online marketplace, and this industry has been growing. But despite having many companies offering online marketplace service with a lot of investment, what we see is that a percentage of retail transaction as a percentage of a retail transaction, actually offline is still dominates. So much more people still transacting offline compared to online. Of course, during COVID, it grew very significantly, but it's still maybe around 20% against 80% between online and offline. And most of this offline is actually done in a traditional level. So we are talking wet market, we are talking mom and pop kiosk instead of the modern retailer. So what we realized then is that in Indonesia, we cannot only rely on pure 100% online service because a lot of people still in the wrong side of the digital literacy and also in the wrong side of financial inclusion. So if you don't have digital savviness, if you don't have digital currency, then unfortunately, it's harder for you to transact online. So what we ended up doing is that a few years ago, we created an online to offline service, basically to be a bridge between this online world and the offline world, using an existing infrastructure that is available all over Indonesia, which is the mom and pop kiosk, the warungs in Indonesian. So what we are trying to do is we digitize this warung. What we mean by digitizing, we create an application which if they download, basically it provides them with a lot of business capabilities. First, they have inventory to provide service to sell or resell digital and virtual goods, like phone credits, like electricity tokens. They can also pay bill. People can also pay taxes, pay travel agents and tickets or whatever it is. So all the things that is digital, the warung can serve it now. We also provide, together we built distribution centers across Indonesia and then from that application, the mom and pop kiosk can refill that inventory without having to leave their kiosk. So if they want to buy additional, say, the instant noodles, the soaps, the regular daily goods that they want to buy, that typically they want to refill, they have to wait for a physical agent to come, or they have to close down their shop and buy from the market. Now they don't have to do that anymore. They can just press the order in our app, and then we'll deliver it to them. And because we have millions of customers, we actually could negotiate a good price with the principal and distributors, so that now this mom and pop kiosk can get access to better pricing, and they get more money.
Mr. Rahmat, sorry, your 7 minutes is up.
Okay.
So thank you so much for the interesting concept between online and offline. And I think, yes, you were right. There is a lot of people don't have access to internet. And I think you guys launching this interesting Mitra Bukalapak. Yeah? So I think next session would be Mr. Ibrahim Do you mind to introduce? And I think we already prepared the slide for you to have a 7 minutes presentation. Thank you.
Selamat siang, Mr. Moderator and my fellow panelists. Greetings from Africa Selatan, where it is now summer and it is a beautiful warm day. Although I would love to have been in Bali and been thrilled to be sitting on the beach in Bali, but circumstances are beyond us. Our two countries, Indonesia and South Africa, share many similarities. The cultural and historical relationships between the two countries are very strong. If I could have the slide presentation, please put up. Just to start off, we're talking about digital innovation for SMEs. Next slide. What is digital innovation? Digital innovation is basically the bringing together the adoption of technology processes and others to increase efficiencies, customer interactions, and to deliver better customer service. Uber did not invent the taxi industry. All that they did was they streamlined the process of being able to grab a tag and to be able to move people around. Next slide, please. And so we've seen that digital adoption has been scaled across the world, and the amount of money that is being spent has been confined to the larger businesses, the larger corporates, and the more developed countries. But as we have moved across, we are now seeing that digital transformation is being adopted in smaller companies, in SMEs, and this is where our focus is today. Next slide, please. The 5 main reasons for digital innovation, and most companies have this at their center and their core, and Monica spoke about the core values, but why are companies adopting digital innovation? And that is to put customers first. It is no longer about what size the company is, but the customer has become the main focus. And how do you get the customer to be central to the transaction and to the process of the company? And that is where digital innovation is actually democratizing business. Next slide, please. And so we've seen the benefits of digital innovation, where companies have adopted digital innovation and they've gone with technology, they've built resilience into themselves. So they've been able to withstand external shocks, such as what we witnessed last year with the lockdown caused by the pandemic. It's increased business operations. It's transformed the customer experience. And most customers are now happy to grab their handphones and their mobiles and to sit on an app and to transact with the company rather than picking up the phone and speaking to a call center and waiting for 10 minutes for someone to service them. It's increased the agility of the company and able to be responding to customer needs because there's been greater data that has been generated through the technology, which is giving better access to the insights of the customer and the customer transaction. Of course, it's increased liquidity and access to finance, and I'll explain that in a moment. Next slide, please. And so COVID-19 has been the game changer. And the game changer has been not because the technology didn't exist. The technology has existed there all this time. All that it's done is that it's created this greater convergence and this need to adopt the technology so that businesses could survive through the pandemic. What has been the most exciting part of this is that how all this collaboration, Siti Aziza spoke about collaboration. The collaboration has come together. All the different facets of the different industries came together to make certain that the customer enjoyed the last mile delivery. So whether you were enjoying food that was coming from a restaurant via Uber Eats, or whether you were ordering online from Amazon and it was delivered to your door, you didn't have to leave your home or your desk, whether to go to work, whether to enjoy life, to enjoy the cuisine that you were normally used to. All of that have now converged into bringing the offline and the online world. Slide, please. And so within the SMEs, and this is where I'd like to focus, is that once SMEs start adopting their technology, we've seen a revolution. And if I can give you the example of what has happened in South Africa, with broadband connectivity being central and access now being more universal, companies are able, and small companies are able to access a wider range of technology. So if we were to take an example of a plumber or electrician who is going to do a home visit, he's now able to invoice his customer electronically, receive his payment digitally, put out onto social media the wonderful service that is delivered to his customers, and therefore build a better following around the business. Even the street hawkers in the markets, and Rahmat has spoken about the market, the digital market, and whether it's the online market as well. And you have these small hawkers in all parts of the world who are constrained by the fact that they have to deal in physical cash. They have to take physical cash and go to their suppliers to buy goods. They then have to keep that physical cash when they have been selling to their customers. And when we merge the two together with using digital technology, which we have done in South Africa, and unlock digital payment for those hawkers, we have equipped a number of hawkers across, we have almost 2,500 hawkers in each city have been equipped with digital payment solutions. So now they are able to access a wider demographic of customers. Myself, I don't carry a wallet any longer. I can go up to a hawker, tap my phone, and buy bananas on the street. That hawker now has the ability of using that transaction to build up a credit history, which allows them to access finance from either the digital payment provider or from financial institutions. And now it's creating a better ability of that small enterprise to be able to interact with their suppliers, to understand what the supplier's stock holding is, to push through orders through to the suppliers and allow the suppliers to also build an insight of that hawker customer. Next slide, please. And so the entry level has been democratized for SMEs. It's no longer a costly operation. 46% of small companies are now incorporating digital technology, and they're receiving or they're responding that there's an increase in the turnover. It's created better efficiencies in those companies. And because we have this ability now of bringing in technology at a very cheap price, it's allowing small companies to start adopting it. And this is where it moves the engine of our economy, because these SMEs are seen as the resilient and the growth of the economy post-pandemic. Next slide, please. And this for me is the telling part. Maybe we need to go one more slide. They can live in the old world or they can live in the new world. They will die in the old world, but they will live in the new world. And this is where SMEs need to start thinking about digital technology. Digital technology is the future. And if small companies, even the hawker, is not adopting that digital technology and that innovation, they are going to see themselves being put out of business. Terima kasih. Thank you very much. I hope I kept to my 7 minutes.
Thank you, Ibrahim. Terima kasih. So thank you for all the 4 panelists sharing. I think everything is agreed that digital transformation for SMEs is very important. I think now there's a lot of platform like Bukalapak, so even an offline SMEs can be productive by working or collaborating with startup. So actually, I have already started to have a question. So this question is actually for Monica. So this question is coming from online, from Tias Puji Kusmarini. Yeah. So Miss Monica, is that possible to implement European micro SME style to developing countries like Indonesia? If it's possible, how is the best way to implement it?
Yeah, sorry, it broke up a bit. What was I just missed the actual question. So,
so is it possible to implement European micro SME style to developing countries like Indonesia? Is it possible to implement?
Yes, definitely. The answer is yes. And I think like the previous speaker talked about, it is actually about the broadband, or like when we get 5G or 4G. So when you get the actual bandwidth, which is not that awesome for me currently, but in general, that's when digital transactions can really evolve. So that's when you can actually have the payment methods in your hand everywhere. And I think it's really awesome to see the activities happening in Indonesia. And I really hope that there is a good collaboration with really good telcos, because the MNOs, the network operators, are in a key to facilitate the infrastructure on which you then can really build a strong payments landscape on the SMEs. And of course, I'm fortunate to be born and live in Finland and Sweden, where we are, of course, really known for our internet and bandwidth and everything that we have on our phones. So definitely the answer is yes. But here, of course, the government needs to make sure that the network operators has a good way of building out, and the infrastructure is built in a way that also the ones living in the rural areas can have a good way and an affordable way to be connected to the digital world.
Thank you. So actually, I have a follow-up question for you, Monica. Actually, in the slide, you mentioned specifically about carbon footprint. And since I think how important for SMEs to see this contribute to the fighting also of the climate change, yeah?
Yeah, well, I would say it like this. There are multiple layers of why it's important. First of all, of course, it is important. I'm a mother of 4. So we will all be affected by climate change, period. And some parts are already horrifically affected. And of course, it's growing. So it's in everyone's everyone needs to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. But I also believe, and I can see it fortunately also starting to happen, that people care, which means
Hello, maybe we have some internet problem with Monica. Hello, Monica. Hello, Monica. So maybe we can move to the next question. Maybe after Monica's internet, we can going back to her question. So I think the next question to Mr. Rahmat from Bukalapak. This is actually a very interesting question. If you can, the question is coming from Felicia Rebecca. I think, what is the future of micro SMEs in Indonesia in the next 20 years? So will be 2041, considering the current rate of people getting familiar with e-commerce. Because 10 years back, 2011, even we don't even dream there is a company who can, we can buy stuff in Bukalapak and send it to our home. We don't even dream 2011, yeah? So Indonesia has been growing so much. So Rahmat, what is the next 20 years happen in micro SMEs?
Wow, that is it's very difficult question. I don't think anyone knows, but maybe let me just answer what I hope will happen by then already. Basically, the thought is that currently the SMEs have, or especially the micro retailer, may have a challenge to compete with the big businesses, right? Typically, you know, given the lack of capital and whatnot, right? So the hope is that in 20 years, using technology, even though they don't have enough, a lot of capital, even though they are not in the big cities, they can give similar services compared to the modern retailer. They can also basically get a lot of services from, let's say, financial services, meaning they can get working capital loan. They can have access to simple ERP, for example, using software as a service. They can provide, you know, they can sell millions and millions of goods. Basically, you know, not only the 100, like the instant noodle, the soap, or whatever that they currently sell. So you can be a very complete offline retailer, but even though you're actually in the village. That is what we hope actually moving forward.
Thank you, Rahmat. So I think actually there's a very interesting question. I can start with Monica first. This is the question coming from Jari Sinkari, the ambassador of Finland, to all the panelists. Maybe starting with the Finnish citizen. I would like to know if any of the panelists have encountered elements of digital diplomacy of any country in their business activities.
Yeah,
Hello,
I think
Monica?
the question, yeah, I'm just thinking about what Jari is actually meaning with digital diplomacy. I can see his face, so he's smiling. But I do think that if I interpret, because he asked a question I can't understand, so I will answer whatever I want to. So I would say in general, of course, it's a collaboration between the governments and then the businesses. And then I do think that we should really look at the world more collaborative. And I do think that the ambassadors should really be the ones, hooking the countries together. As again, if you think the climate change aspect, we need to fight this thing together, and we can prosper as a nation and the world together. Because, the good thing in the end of the day, if we don't find solution where we lead a more sustainable life, we as a humankind would die. The planet won't. So it would auto-correct anyway. But since I don't really understand what Jari meant, but Jari can send me in Finnish an email later. But yeah, and I really have to say thank you so much. My Finnish-Swedish operator Telia hasn't been the most stable one. So thank you for having me, and please feel free to send me any questions, but I think I'm running out of bandwidth now. So it's been a pleasure and an honor to be here.
Thank you, Monica. So Monica have other urgent meetings. You need to leave the meetings. But thank you so much. But
Thank you.
actually, Monica is so easy. I reach her over LinkedIn. She responds directly. So anybody want to reach her, she can be reached over LinkedIn as well. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. So I think the question go to I think Ibu Aziza already left. So Pak Chandra, yeah, who replacing her. So I think back to the question from Mr. Jari, I would like to know if any of the panelists have encountered elements of digital diplomacy of any country in business activities. Mas Chandra, Mr. Chandra.
Oke. Sebelumnya saya minta maaf, saya pakai bahasa Indonesia, dan saya izin juga Bu Deputi ada kegiatan selanjutnya, jadi saya izin untuk menggantikan Mas Italo. Salam kenal, Mas.
Salam kenal,
Oke.
Mas.
Siap. Jadi memang Kementerian Koperasi itu sedang kita mencoba untuk masuk value chain dunia ya, Mas ya. Dan memang tadi yang disampaikan Bu Deputi itu di 17,6% itu yang kita targetkan untuk ekspor. Dan kita juga sudah bekerja sama, Mas, di Smesco, itu ada BNI Ekspora, dan juga untuk pasar di ASEAN dan lain-lain. Jadi banyak hal yang dilakukan juga. Kita mendorong juga, Kementerian Koperasi sedang mendorong untuk UMKM kita untuk go global dan memakai teknologi untuk bisa memasarkan barang-barang asli Indonesia ke seluruh penjuru dunia. Seperti itu, Mas.
Okay, thank you, Mas Chandra. So back to Rahmat. So in Bukalapak, do you guys encounter element of digital diplomacy of any country nowadays?
Yeah. So I don't know whether this is part of digital diplomacy or not, but we do have a lot of connections with basically foreign representative of foreign countries. A lot of them is typically because they are interested with our SME solution, especially the Mitra Bukalapak. People from also the developing countries as well want to see how can we grow this solution, and they're interested to learn a little bit more. And of course, we are quite happy to discuss this with people, because I think online solution, e-commerce has been around for maybe 20, 30 years now. But we just started with online to offline with SMEs. This is ongoing, and Indonesia is actually one of the leading in terms of this technology. So yeah, I mean, maybe those are the kind of things that we have seen before with the foreign representatives.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the interesting assets of Indonesia, I think, for example, Bukalapak is one of the unicorns. I don't know how many unicorns now in Indonesia. Every month we have new unicorns. And I think what Mas Rahmat saying is really, I think the combination and online and offline something very innovative in Indonesia. And I think many of other countries actually would like to learn from Indonesia and from Bukalapak. And maybe to Mr. Ibrahim, so what is your opinion about, do you have any encounter element of digital diplomacy of any country in your business activities?
Well, I'd like to be at the spot that the ambassador is sitting at the moment. His background is wonderfully inviting. But just to answer his question, last year during the extended lockdown, many African countries were discussing procurement of PPE, and this was done online. We were able to, in Africa, create a centralized database that allowed different suppliers and customers, being the different departments of health in the ministries of the various countries, to be able to access consistent information so that they could procure the PPE for the different countries. The embassy in Pretoria the Indonesian embassy in Pretoria has been very active in building the trade relationship between South Africa and Indonesia during the lockdown. The ambassador has hosted a number of online meetings with the various chambers of commerce and with the different businesses in Indonesia. And I think that has created the ability of businesses in South Africa and Indonesia to continue transacting with each other, even though we face this hard lockdown. So maybe that might give a little insight of the experience that we had in South Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, Ibrahim. So actually, there's another question for you, Mr. Ibrahim. This is from Arif, the Indonesian Embassy, Pretoria. How do you think the digital transformation for SMEs can contribute to the end the unemployment crisis in South Africa? And what can be learned from Indonesia experience?
Of course, the embassy has to ask me the very hard question: how do we solve our country's unemployment rate? Okay, just to give some insight into what I believe is the crucial role that SMEs play in the South African economy, is that we have a very high unemployment rate. Our unemployment rate is sitting currently at about 47% of the employable workforce. And that is a social problem which will translate into some social instability in the future. Government is working a lot on how to create employment. And I believe that SMEs, if adopting technology and innovation, can actually grow their own businesses and therefore create employability within those SMEs. So for instance, in July of this year, we had a challenge in the country where we had some unrest in a particular area, and a hawker market was burnt down, and those hawkers lost their businesses. We created a facility for them to quickly transact, a temporary facility where we equipped them, we gave them little grants so that they could start off their businesses again. But within that space of 3 months, those SMEs were not only just equipped to start off again, but we created a skills and development program for them to skill them on business transactions. So they were able to scale up their businesses. And about 6 of those small SMEs, those micro businesses, have now grown to become suppliers into the market itself. And they've created more employment. So I think that if we support SMEs and create the adoption of technology within those SMEs, there is a possibility that we could increase the growth of those SMEs. Who knows, maybe at some point there will be a unicorn in South Africa like Bukalapak. And we create that collaboration, and as I said earlier on, we share the similarities. I think that there are many lessons that can be learned from Indonesia, and I'm a great believer that we don't need to look westwards in order to find solutions for developing countries. We should be looking eastwards, and we should be looking to each other to find the solutions. Indonesia has been very focused on the SME market. The development of women-owned enterprises has been very key in my experience. And I think that those are lessons that we can learn from Indonesia, is how do we unlock the forgotten part the forgotten gender of our economy, and so allow even women-owned businesses to enter into the formal business sector. So, whether it's a basket weaver at home or the lady who's making pies from her home to sustain her own home industry, can we then bring them into the mainstream of the economy? And I think that those are lessons that we can learn from Indonesia.
Thank you, Ibrahim. I think, yeah, we are so lucky. I think there's company like Bukalapak, Tokopedia, Blibli, Tanihub, Halodoc. Actually, everybody actually born before COVID. If this company never exists before COVID, I think the COVID would be very hard to us, but we are so happy to have this company. So maybe audience from offline, anyone want to ask any questions? Okay. Please introduce yourself first, Pak. Yeah. And nggak jalan mic-nya. Ya.
Oh, udah.
Ya.
Terima kasih,
Ya.
Bapak. Oke. Dalam era digitalisasi ini, dari tadi saya berpikir sebenarnya. I'm sorry, I'm using Indonesian. Or maybe I will use English instead of Indonesian. Okay, so from the beginning, I rather pessimistic for micro, small, medium enterprise in this digital era. Because this shifting has a lot of changes. So even before the COVID, my name is Nyoman Sumarto, sorry.
I want Bas to ask you to introduce yourself first, Pak. You are from where, Pak?
I'm from Bali.
Okay.
So I am a social entrepreneur.
Okay.
So my brand is Bali Zen, which is handicraft brands for
Okay.
home decor and also sustainable. So we are assisting small, medium enterprise for 30 years. Even before COVID, small, medium enterprises has a hard time to compete in the global market.
Yeah.
And now adding a homework for them to be able to follow this shifting period I think it's like adding 1,000 points to their weight to be able to compete. So, and Monica said about the, carbon footprint. And even before that, it's hard for us. You know, I'm spending like most of my profit to just assist the small, medium enterprise because we are social enterprise. And my question is now, do we have mutual effort to bridging and assist small, medium enterprise for nation in the world to make them able to follow this shifting? Or our system economy will be more sided to the people who has money? So this is a big question because if we see on our value chains, it's already unfair. So how do we make this fair? So the small, medium enterprise with the supply chains, they couldn't get the best price and the best quality for their production. And then they don't know how to manage their production ability. And they have limited human resources. They have limited access to affordable financing. And then knowledge, and then market, and then design, and then all of that. Yes, there's a lot of what you call a marketplace, but they not assist them. So I'm in the field for 30 years, and I feel there's hard time for us to giving assistance, and how do we get access to the support? And this is a big question for me, for everybody in this room. So because if we really want to make a fair economy to all the people, let's do this. A lot of big companies make a lot of profit at this time, but what about the small?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
this is, we need to really let things serious, not just talk. If we just talk here, it's just mean nothing. We
Okay.
just like wasting our time, wasting our everything. So let's talk seriously. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak. So I think this is actually very interesting question to Rahmat of Bukalapak. I think this is a typical SME stories that they need funding, they need place to to promote their product. Maybe you can share some of the stories of what Bukalapak did.
Yeah, thank you, Pak. Basically, of course, SMEs has a lot of problems that you have described before. Yeah, it's hard to get capital. It's hard to get market access, and and you actually live that for 30 years. So basically, we don't need to explain more. Yeah, but what I could say today versus maybe like 10 years ago or 20 years ago is that at least now there are infrastructure that can help people to access big markets. And those infrastructure typically is actually quite cheap or affordable. For example, in the online marketplace that's already we have in Indonesia, we are lucky to have a few platforms, yeah, online marketplace. If you open a lapak, for example, in Bukalapak, then the fee is actually start from 0% until to very low single digit, and you only pay when there is a transaction. Imagine if you want to open a kiosk, for example, in the market in Pasar Sukawati or whatever it is in Bali, for example, or a ruko shop house, then you have to pay money in the beginning, right, upfront. So now, like, everyone can trade in the market, and like now, if you upload it, everything is actually accessible to the whole world, basically, for people to see. The other thing that we also have is also in capital, yeah, in financial services. The moment people start transacting online or selling online, be it in the online marketplace or in Mitra Bukalapak, all the transaction data is recorded, and all that transaction data is a good data that we can present to the financial services or banks. So if people want to borrow money, for example, once you have a good track record, you have been selling, you have you sell for a few million for a few months, now your transaction, you are bankable. The banks will want to give you the capital because they're comfortable with the track record that we already have. So those are a few things that that is already there. Of course, that is some other issues in terms of production and whatnot, and there's I think there are other companies that try to solve that. But in terms of providing market access, providing access to financial services, I think that the companies, the technology that is in Indonesia today is already it's much more advanced than maybe 10 years ago. And of course, we still need to do more. That's why we keep doing a lot of education, try to digitize, introduce this service to people. We work with Ibu Aziza from the ministry as well. So yeah, I mean, this is an ongoing process.
Thank you, Mr. Ahmad. I think one of the things that I think Bukalapak and Kementerian Koperasi doing is more into the empowering the digital literacy among the SMEs, because I think the whole business actually changed, the operation changed. And I think I have another question from the floor.
Can I just
okay,
provide some opinion?
Okay.
I think that the question from the floor is a very important question, is that how do SMEs be supported? Because there is this perception that the smaller businesses are being left behind while we have the growth of companies like Amazon and the rest of them becoming trillionaires. It's a reality. But let me share a slightly different perspective, that when you talk about entrepreneurs and small businesses, we actually see opportunity in adversity. And so companies like Groupon were created not when times were good, but during the SARS outbreak to allow suppliers to offload the excess goods. And so I believe that this time represents a very unique opportunity for the SME world, in that the digital technology that is available has become democratized and freely available. We are now able to transact anywhere in the world, Business has become borderless, it's become currencyless, it's become cultureless, and it's become timeless. And so the ability of a small SME, and I'll give you an example of a lady who makes handbags in Indonesia, who I've transacted with personally, over her Instagram account, and I was able to buy a handbag from her, purely because she had marketed herself very phenomenally on social media. And marketing today is not about the high cost.
Suaranya hilang.
I am muted. It's about the ability to tell a story about the product. And I think that there we have opportunities for SMEs to sell their unique stories in order to sell their products. So I have great hope. I know that there are pessimists amongst us, but I remain an eternal optimist that SMEs can actually become the global businesses of the future.
Thank you, Ibrahim. So I think one super short question from Mbak, silakan.
Okay.
Before I close the session, because.
Okay. Thank you before for the time. My name is Beauty Soekarno, and then I'm from Technology Management ITS, Surabaya.
Okay.
I want to ask to the Ministry of Cooperative and SMEs, actually to Miss Aziza. Maybe I will mix with English and Indonesia because
pakai bahasa Indonesia aja nggak apa-apa.
Oke.
Cepat aja Mbak.
Iya, jadi pertanyaannya sangat simpel sekali sebenarnya. Terkait tadi apa yang dibilang sama Mr. Ibrahim, COVID made the game changes is actually real. And then bisa dibilang dengan adanya keberadaan COVID ini membuat pemain lama, katakanlah seluruh UMKM ini itu tuh menurut pandangan saya tuh tidak sepenuhnya adalah entrepreneur semuanya, tapi lebih besar mereka adalah seorang reseller, katakan seperti itu. Dan bagaimana nih dari pihak Kementerian UMKM sendiri terkait bagaimana mengembangkan tetap can help and develop for the all players actually biar tetap eksis dan gak kalah bersaing dengan reseller. Karena sejauh ini saya sebelumnya selama hampir 2 tahun itu turun langsung ke UMKM khususnya di daerah Jawa Timur, dan mereka sendiri bilang bahwa dari pihak dinas maupun katakan dari dinas industri maupun ekonomi ya, itu tidak secara langsung membantu mereka. Okay. Jadi mereka selalu kesusahan apalagi untuk tetap eksis di dunia digital yang saat ini sedang booming seperti itu.
Oke, terima kasih. Mas Chandra, reseller. Nggak semua orang kan entrepreneur, tapi banyak reseller. Ini classic problem nih di Indonesia gitu kan. Mungkin bisa kasih super quick statement aja sebelum saya harus closing.
Yap, oke. Jadi di Deputi Kewirausahaan di Kementerian Koperasi kemarin kita melakukan research. Memang banyak produk yang sekarang ada di e-commerce itu memang kebanyakan juga produk-produk luar sebenarnya. Dan itu kita nggak produksi sendiri gitu. Dan apa sih yang akan dilakukan sama kementerian? Jadi semenjak tahun di 2020 kemarin kita mengadakan program inkubasi. Jadi kita bekerja sama dengan lembaga inkubasi untuk bisa menaikkan yang tadi. Ada target kita di 2024 menaikkan rasio kewirausahaan nasional. Jadi yang akan berwirausaha itu kita empowering untuk kita naikkan dari segi literasi digitalnya, kapasitas produksinya, kualitasnya, sampai ke akses pasarnya. Dan untuk yang established, untuk UKM-UKM yang sudah ada, itu kita coba naikkan percepatan dari segi usahanya. Jadi tadi juga sekalian menjawab pertanyaan yang sebelumnya. Jadi untuk meningkatkan UMKM di Indonesia, Kementerian Koperasi itu sudah bekerja sama dengan beberapa pihak, salah satunya di antar kementerian. Jadi pengadaan barang untuk di level kementerian, di level pemerintah provinsi, di level pemerintah daerah itu 40% harus bisa diserap oleh koperasi dan juga UMKM. Dan yang terakhir Mas Italo, sekarang ada kebijakan, kita punya kebijakan namanya Peraturan Presiden nomor 7, Peraturan Pemerintah nomor 7 tahun 2021, 40% tempat aset negara itu harus dimanfaatkan oleh koperasi dan juga UMKM. Itu yang mungkin bisa menaikkan dari segi untuk segi realisasi anggaran, itu koperasi dan UMKM bisa mengeksekusi, dan juga ada tempat publik yang bisa dipakai untuk UMKM dan juga koperasi. Itu yang menjadi komitmen Kementerian Koperasi untuk bisa meningkatkan UMKM dan koperasi di Indonesia. Terima kasih, Mas.
Okay, thank you, Mas Chandra. So I think, thank you. I just want to close this session, and I think thank you to Ms. Aziza, Mas Chandra, Ms. Monica, Mr. Ahmad, and Mr. Ibrahim for this session. I think if I can summarize, I think we all agreed that COVID accelerated the digital transformation. And I think we need to keep positive that I think SMEs will strive and will learn more about digital literacy, about how to exist online. And I think offline is also as important as online. So I think what Bukalapak did, that building an offline platform for all the SMEs that don't access to internet. And I think one thing that we cannot forget, we need to fight this climate change, because I think climate change will impact to everybody and to the business itself. So thank you so much for attending this session. Please, all the audience, you can follow the closing ceremony of this International Digital Diplomacy Conference at YouTube at MOFA Indonesia. Thank you so much. Good afternoon from everybody from Bali. Thank you.